Graham, tell us a little bit about your relationship with your grandfather and what he was like.
Well, George W. Seward, he was well, they called him a carpenter then. I remember my grandfather because he had a big old, I think it was a Franklin touring car.
Okay.
I used to ride around with him. He'd go down to the shore. He built several cottages down there. And he had a workshop in a barn back of his house, and I just thought he was wonderful. Because my own father was sick at that point. He came down with TB the year I was born. And he was in a sanitarium most of the time in Wallingford.
Graham, tell us a little bit about your father. As I understand, he died when you were young.
Before I was born, he was temporarily assigned to Boston. So he would go up on the train and then come back on the weekend.
Okay.
He and I believe there were 7 other men from his office were up there doing I don't know what. But they were all card players and smokers. And I guess when they got to Boston, they didn't have to report in every night. They smoked, smoked and played cards and whatever else. Anyway, one of them came down with TB, and the rest of them followed right after. All but one died.
Now, how old were you when your dad died?
I was 7.
You were 7 when he died.
And he died January 1st, and my mother died January 1st.
That,
40 years
40
later.
years later. So he never really was a big presence in your life.
He wasn't. He did come home from time to time, and I remember he had what they called a house tent out in the backyard. And he had his bed and a chair and table and so forth out there. So it was a tent house. And he lived there most of the time when he was home. Then they decided, my grandfather decided he was going to build a sleeping porch for him because he was too cold to be out there.
And he couldn't live inside just because out of fear that he would contaminate the rest of the family?
At that time, fresh air was the cure. And of course they were afraid of contagion. So anyway, Grandpa built the sleeping porch, which you've seen in pictures. Now, after the house was sold, the buyer tore that down. It probably was a big maintenance thing.
Graham, tell us how your mother and father met.
He and my mother worked for the railroad in New Haven.
Okay.
He had worked up, well, he'd been in Texas, he'd been all around. But at that time, he was also in New Haven.
Right.
My mother was well, in those days, they were stenographers. Nobody was secretary, assistant to stenographers.
So they met through work then? That's how they met?
Through work.
Okay.
They were married in the Methodist Church. I think that was probably his father's faith.
Uh-huh.
And they insisted that my mother be baptized. And she'd already been baptized. As an she was a Congregationalist.
Congregationalist, right. Yeah.
They lived 2 houses down from the Congregational Church. Right. My father evidently was always putting his foot in it.
Graham, tell us about your brothers and growing up with them in Guilford, Connecticut. What was that like?
Well, my brother George was the oldest, and then Del was 2 years after that, and then I was 5 years after that.
5 years after, so there's 7 years between you and George. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're the baby girl.
Always, yeah. And I had the good and the bad of it.
Yeah.
My brother George was the big tease.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he was the boss.
Uh-huh.
When there was a boss. That wasn't my mother.
Right.
George was a pain in the neck. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He was. He was the oldest and he knew it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So sometimes, my mother would leave him in charge for short periods. Because who got to do his chores? My other brother and me.
Del were close in
age
and other.
Closer as in young.
Uh-huh.
And he would spend time. And my brother George, he was older. He was off, with his things.
Yeah.
But my brother Del, he would play cards, and we would, because usually what he wanted to play. But, I didn't know any better.
Right. And
I didn't mind. But as I look back on it, I realized we played war an awful lot.
Well, you passed that down to me.
He had these little soldiers, and
yeah.
Because he played alone a lot too, but
yeah.
We would play that, and we would play the game,
Yeah.
But we did play a lot of cards. Del and I were the and my mother were the card players.
Uh-huh. Well, you remained close to your brothers their whole lives, pretty much your whole lives, right? Yeah.
Well,
George moved away.
Yeah, he was a horticulturist, and he moved, and then he went into the Marines, of course, in World War II.
Uh-huh.
And when he came back, he stayed in California. He liked it.
Yeah.
He was married and divorced when he got out of the service. Married just before he went. And
she sounds like quite a character. Sounds very entrepreneurial, and what was she like? What are your memories of her?
Well, she was very quiet.
Very quiet.
Really. She didn't make waves. She was very capable. She could wallpaper. She could paint. She had some of her father's carpentry.
Uh-huh.
Either rubbed off or she had it kind of like Isabel.
Yeah. Was she warm? Was she a warm mother? Would you how was it? You had a good relationship with her?
She was warm. She wasn't kissy. Well, our families were demonstrative anyway.
Right.
And
You had to get to this generation, huh?
yeah. Each one gets warmer.
Yeah.
But yes, we had a good relationship. And she tried to make things, because you have to understand, there was a whole different relationship between parents and children back then in the 20s.
Right. It's much more formal, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was. But she tried to think of some things, to make life a little lighter. I mean, we went on picnics, and she learned to drive a car, but not until the 30s. No, she didn't.
And she never had any boyfriends or anyone.
Well, there was someone that was, I guess, engaged to her practically before she met my father. And interestingly enough, he looked her up when she was just before she retired, in her late 50s. He lived in Canada, and he was married. But he used to come in to see her once or twice a year. His wife was very nice, and she wrote to my mother when her husband died. I often wonder if she'd married him, she would have had a life of ease. Yeah.
But did she have a good life? You look back on it?
Well, I suppose if life is living without a companion.
Right, she didn't have that side of it.
Yeah.
But she had three beautiful kids, and
essentially she lived for her kids.
Right. Graham, tell us a little bit about what happened when your dad died. You would have been a girl of 7 years old, your older brother, George, 14. What did your mom do at that point, and how did the family react?
My mother went back to work, and she worked for the bus company in Guilford. But, my brother Delson, they wanted to get rid of her because she was a woman, and this was a male operation. I don't know if that was true, because she did work there a number of years. But anyway, they rearranged things, and so she lost her job, and she became a public stenographer. See, they didn't have secretaries then, so you had to go to a public stenographer to get things typed up. And so that's what she did in our home. She typed one or two manuscripts for some authors who were in Guilford for the summer or whatever. Can't remember the books. One of them became a bestseller. And she worked also part-time for a poultry breeder. She would go to his facility a couple of days a week.
Do the bookkeeping for him?
He liked that because there was a lot of international correspondence. And my middle brother liked it because she brought home stamps.
Yes, that's how I became a stamp collector.
Yeah. So that was a good arrangement. But I guess it wasn't as steady as she'd like, this arrangement. So she ran for tax collector. And she won. And all of a sudden, they didn't have room in the town hall for a tax collector. See, this bias.
So your house became the tax collector's office.
Yes, our front living room became a tax collector's office, which actually worked very well for her. Really interesting because they would come 6:30 on Sunday morning, midnight on Saturday. You never knew. Not very often at midnight, thank goodness.
what kind of a student were you? Did you like school? I can imagine you. Yeah, yeah.
I liked it, but I also was not a good student. And the teacher would tell us things, and I'd get it just like that. But a week later, I couldn't remember. So I learned fairly quickly that it was better to pass every as they came along. Forget about the end of the year because I'd fall practically.
That's funny because you have an unbelievable memory. I find it hard to believe.
I didn't care enough.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, memories are different. No, I'm talking about things I was involved in.
Yeah.
In, schoolwork, you don't get involved. Adele was a very good student, math particularly, which of course was not my big point, and he would do it.
Yeah. Yeah. He'd help you out. Yeah. Yeah. And so what were you like as a teenager? Were you a risk taker? Were you shy? Were you? Because I always think of you as so confident and strong.
I was not confident, no.
Okay.
I guess I was probably inhibited a little. Don't forget, those two aunts there,
Who were the two aunts? Was it?
Aunt Alice and Cora. Were a very strong influence in my life. They were my great aunts.
Yeah.
Not one of them got married. Aunt Alice wanted to get married, my mother said, and her parents wouldn't let her.
Uh-huh.
The man wasn't good enough. It really affected her whole life.
Yeah.
She was a seamstress, and she was a beautiful sewer.
Yeah.
But then her hands got
Right, from overuse.
arthritic, really
Right.
couldn't do it.
Were you in high school still when you met Gary? Or just out of high school? So
I was in a postgraduate
So,
for that. You see, now as I got older, my big brother came in handier.
okay.
That's how I met Gary. They were roommates out at Stockbridge. You see, UMass was small then, but it was known as Stockbridge. George was in horticulture. I believe Gary specialized in forestry. And then when I met him, he had a job power company then, but he had been in the Merchant Marine also. Came to visit George, and evidently he took a shine, and he called up and wanted to come again. And we were married not too long after that.
Huh.
Of course, he was older, he was ready to settle down, because I thought he was a hunk.
Right.
And he turned out to be the love of my life, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Bud was a good man. I was lucky. I married two good men. Didn't treat me like possession.
Yeah.
And yet, they were very protective. I was very, very lucky. I remember before we were married, we went down to the World's Fair, 1939 World's Fair. And he'd never driven in New York before. Of course, I never had. I'd been to New York many times, but always to see my aunts. And we had a great time. And I had a great time. I remember we went into the Norway display.
Exhibit, right.
The waiters thought I was Norwegian, and they fell all over me. So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Then we went into the Swedish one for another meal, and they thought I was Swedish. So they fell all over me.
Yeah.
I felt pretty puffed up over that.
Yeah. And Gary probably played it up, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, maybe they thought he was too, I don't know. You know, he was pretty tan and, well, like you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Outdoorsy looking.
Right.
His father married us.
Okay.
We were married in our front living room.
Uh-huh.
Mostly because the Catholic priest wouldn't allow a bridesmaid to be my bridesmaid in the church because it wasn't the Catholic church. And we wore street clothes because frankly neither one of us could afford to.
And this was at the Guilford house?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We were just coming out of the Depression.
Sure,
Really.
sure.
And of course my mother didn't make a whole lot anyway, and her father was a house painter and he didn't make a lot of money.
Right.
So we went shopping together, and Gary was happy because he didn't have to wear a fancy suit.
So that was 1940 you were married?
Yeah.
And Grant Sir died shortly after, right? Wasn't it the next
41, yeah.
the next year? Huh. And how old was he? Do you recall? Was he older
I
when?
think he was about 64. He
Okay.
wasn't old.
Yeah.
He got, well, he had pneumonia, he had streptococcus.
In those days you could die from that, huh? Yeah.
Well, we didn't have penicillin then.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to believe.
Wow. What was he like? Was he a
Oh,
strong
well,
person?
I was scared to death of him because of the stories I'd heard.
Yeah.
But he was all right.
Yeah.
He really was. He was good-natured as far as I could see. He liked to tease a little, you know, and he could tease with a straight face.
Uh-huh.
And you just, I didn't dare tease back.
Yeah.
I didn't have long enough to get used to him.
Right.
And he was probably more lenient with me because I was young and he didn't know me either. And we got along fine. As I say, I was pretty careful.
Yeah. What was Alta like? Well, that his wife's name was Alta, so that would be Gary's mother,
Yeah.
Alta Palmer.
Oh, she was warm and, yeah, she was very nice. She lived with us for 15 years. You
Oh, I didn't realize
and it
that.
was her house that we bought. So
So the house that you bought was Grancer's home. Okay. Uh-huh.
So, you know, that put a little edge
I
between
can
us.
see that. Yeah.
Before we bought the house, we stayed there, I guess, a week while she went away. And I thought I kept it looking pretty good. She didn't think so. She didn't say anything to me, but I overheard her. Some one of her friends dropped in. And I overheard her apologizing, but, well, she hadn't been home, and things weren't quite the same as they would have been. No, I really didn't. I had dusted that morning before she got back. I didn't know how it could be too bad.
Yeah. She just wanted to feel needed. Probably.
Yeah. But I said that was before we bought the house.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of set the wrong tone.
Tell me about the early years of your marriage. You mentioned there were some great times and some tough times. Off. What year would this have been?
This was our first year.
Your first year, so yeah. Huh.
So we lived with there at 30 Huntington Avenue for a short while, and Gary would go out and look for work in the morning, and then the afternoons he was up in the woodlot chopping wood for one of the local farmers. And I would go up, not every day, but a lot. And because it was cold, there was snow on the ground.
Yeah.
And I would stack the sticks. And
Yeah.
so we had a core. He did that for a month or two. Then they went back to work. Everything was good again. And he was never laid off again.
Graham, it sounds like Huntington Ave played an important part in your life. When did you and Gary purchase that home from Alta?
I would say probably in 44. Sally was born in February, and we moved the day after a hurricane. It wasn't anything like the 1938 hurricane.
Right.
It went better than I anticipated.
Uh-huh. So you moved back into Huntington Ave at that point?
Yeah, we moved from Quincy.
That would have been right around when the war was ending too, huh?
Gary was working in the shipyard then.
Uh-huh. Quincy Shipyard, yeah. But he later went back to work for the power company, right?
Oh, earlier.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
He didn't go to work for the shipyard until the war.
right. Then after the war, he went back to work for the power company?
Well, she and grandson were up there for, until he died. They would go up summers. Now, he bought it in 39.
Right
When we
before.
went there for our honeymoon, Wynn and Marion went there. And they warned us, she said, be aware that he'll probably make an appearance about 7 o'clock some morning.
Yeah,
But he never did.
yeah,
He did for them,
yeah.
but he never did. Mother B, after grandson died, she would go up to the ranch. You know, one of the boys would take her up, get her established. And I know at least one year Carolyn stayed up there
Uh-huh,
with her, so she wouldn't be alone,
right.
because they didn't have any transportation.
Carolyn would be Skelly's daughter? Yeah,
We started to go on vacation. I don't think we went up too much on the weekends, because back then, it was a 5-hour trip. It wasn't as hot as it is now. We didn't have air conditioning in our cars. The roads were narrower and the trees hung over, so it wasn't as... And you could have the windows open because you
Right.
didn't go so darn fast. In some ways, it was a nicer trip, in other ways, it wasn't.
yeah. So you'd stay up there for
Well,
a
we spent
week
the
at
2
time,
weeks.
2 weeks, and
We
then,
did.
yeah,
And Wynn and Marion did for a while, and then they started going off in their trailers. But Gary, by that time, he was back, of course, with the power company, and he was traveling. He didn't feel like driving around all over the place on vacation.
so he liked to just go and stay there and relax
Yeah,
with the girls.
we all loved it.
Yeah,
So sometimes Wynn and Marion would go up with us. After then of course the fire came.
right, 1947, right? Yeah,
Yeah, that wasn't too long. Sue was a year old. Marion and Alberto were married, I think that same year, the fire. And after that, of course, it wiped out the cabin.
right.
I mean the farmhouse, that's
Right.
where we stayed there.
Pictures of that, yeah,
I've
yeah.
got some too here, but
yeah.
after that, then we had that big tent, 16 feet square. Great, oh, that was monster that was, but it was great. We had the 6 beds in a crib. And it's babysitter. Yeah, and the babysitter was supposed to get up at night, but she slept. And We didn't blame her. You know, she was on the go all day long with those kids.
Yeah.
And they did. They had to go. Especially Joan. Poor Joan, you know, her bladder never, well, she inherited her grandmother Bodwell's bladder, which is enough of a penalty. Marion and I sat there all one, I don't know, maybe 2 days, sewing that screening on to the roof and the edges all the way around it. If you don't think that's hard work.
Now, were you close to Marion?
Oh, yeah. We
Yeah.
were
Good friends? Yeah.
Well, we only lived a couple of miles from each other.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And,
So this is Wynn's wife, Marion, not
Yeah,
sister.
not sister.
Sister, yeah. She was down.
well, she went to college. So she was gone most of the first years of
Uh-huh.
our marriage.
Yeah,
And then she was down in Washington.
yeah,
And then she went to South America, so
yeah, yeah. She was,
You know.
yeah,
she was pretty much.
right. So there
we
was,
were good friends, she and I.
yeah,
We were younger than Marion Hussey,
right,
and so when she was around, I used to go sometimes around with her and visit friends, or they'd come and visit her if they were out of town.
uh-huh. But the Wynn and Marion lived close by, and so they were a couple that you were real close to
You know,
growing up, Gary's brother.
we each
when-
had our own friends, but we did a lot of family things together.
Uh-huh.
You know, and the girls you see were just like stepping stones.
I remember a lot of great memories, and I'm sure you do, with Bud, and I mean, of course that was the only grandfather I knew.
Well,
Yeah,
you kids were wonderful for him. As you can see how many pictures there are of him with you. And he really, I often thought that prepared him for being a grandfather. Not that he had very long to be one. He really hadn't had any contact before. Sure, his brother-in-law there in Foxborough had a daughter, but it was different. It wasn't the same as having you kids and being a real part. I loved my girls.
yeah,
He loved being part of their life, and he really had a lot of fun in it.
yeah. Oh, I can remember he used to have a ton of fun with Fred and your daughter's husbands, right? I can remember at Thanksgivings and so forth, he'd laugh and have a great time, and he was always in the mix, you know. He wouldn't let anybody get away with much, you know.
Bud and I had some good trips together too. See, he was in the war,
Uh-huh.
and I think he really enjoyed it.
Well, he was in the Korean War or the World War II?
World War II.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he and his brother, when they got together, they went, what? Oh, never said anything bad about the war, you know.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't seem bothered the way you hear people are now. Maybe they just tucked it in, I don't know. It was his wife's brother.
Ah, his first wife's brother, right. Okay.
They were,
She died?
she had a cerebral hemorrhage.
Okay. And did they stay close, his brother-in-law?
Yes, they
Uh-huh.
were good friends, and his wife was great because she would see that they was kind of like Fran and Bill.
Yeah, yeah.
They were good friends. But they were over in the same theater a lot of the time. So they shared some of the same experiences, not all stories to tell, about things
Yeah,
that some of the things they pulled off that they shouldn't have,
right, right,
and other people
Shenanigans.
pulled off.
right.
They got to stay close, and I went up to visit them in Maine every summer. Hicks, H-I-C-K-S.
That's right, right.
Didn't do
I listened, it sounds like you've had a lot of setbacks in your life. You think about your father passing away early, and then, of course, tragedy with Gary dying at an early age. And how do you?
Yeah, I did. But, overall, I've had a good life.
Yeah,
It's nothing like I thought when I was 15 what it was going to be, but,
yeah,
no, haven't done anything remarkable, which is understandable. Most of us don't, except in our dreams.
right. Well, I think you've been a remarkable grandmother to us.
I was a better grandmother than great-grandmother. I really,
You were a great grandmother.
I don't wish being a great-grandmother on anybody. It's not nearly as much fun as being a grandmother. I don't know. Most of my memories are pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Always the ones that are the goofs I made. I made plenty of those, but I'm not going to tell you what they are.
That was my next question. I was going to ask you if there's anything you would do differently. You look back at it.
Probably, but I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. Good for you.
It was bad enough to do them the first time.
Right.